Alright, MrSotko here, and welcome back to another Company Heroes 2 replay cast. Today it is a 1 vs 1 on Semoskiy Winter between our blue British Forces player, Captain Tampon, which I find pretty humorous, and on the left side, our pink OKW player, Wulpenstein. Again, it is Semoskiy Winter. We have our victory points going straight down the center of the map, slightly angled, I suppose, and we have our munitions point at the bottom, fuel point here, and of course we have a fuel point up top, as well as that munitions point. And I've heard that this map, or this particular game rather, has some very interesting play in it, so I decided to cast this game. I do not know what kind of interesting play is in this game, because I am doing sort of a blind replay. I typically like to do blind replays because they are much funner for both myself and you. I like to be surprised just as much as you do, and now these Stern Pioneers have taken that very first territory point, and are now taking that second territory point in the center. And our British Forces player just now moving out with a couple infantry sections, one all the way up top, one is moving to the center, has a Vickers heavy machine gun on the way as well. Meanwhile, those Stern Pioneers are now moving towards that fuel point, and we have some Volksgrenadiers moving towards the center as well, perhaps going directly towards this church, or rather going around the church. Nope, going inside the church there. Kind of got juked out just a bit there. And a second Volksgrenadier is on the map as well. And soon we'll run into the infantry section of the British forces. And you can see the graphics actually kind of mess up a little bit there. Look at that. That's kind of weird. Very, very interesting. And here come the Volksgrenadiers versus the infantry section now. And apologize for that shift click there. And now the battle has begun. Infantry is behind superior cover there, so a bit extra firepower for the British Forces infantry. So I'm going to have to back off those Volksgrenadiers. Temporarily lost one of the Volksgrenadiers. Now 3 Volksgrenadiers out on the map. And Schwerer Wehrmacht Schlepper has not been created. Not been turned into anything just yet. Stern Pioneers are chilling down in this house, protecting the fuel point for now. Probably pop those out and take some extra stuff. The territory point's down here, but we have the Volksgrenadiers doing that for them. Infantry are now moving down to the bottom side of the map, taking that victory point and the munitions point shortly thereafter. And infantry also at the top of the map as well. I think a little bit more territory for the British forces has been taken so far. So you have about 31 to 26 in terms of the resources, and 18 and 10. And even though OKW has a slight disadvantage in handicap in terms of the resources in this game, I would say that's still much behind the British forces at the moment. The Royal Engineers are out for the British forces as well. Infantry versus Volksgrenadiers right in each other's faces. Both behind excellent cover, however, the infantry gain that attack speed advantage from being inside cover for the British forces there. And these guys really need to go back to boot camp because they simply cannot hit each other at point blank. And there they go now. And I'm going to be running off to the top, claiming their victory for the victory point and the munitions there. Now, Volksgrenadiers have taken all of those bottom victory points, or territory points rather, and are now taking the other territory point down here at the bottom. Infantry have taken that munitions point and the fuel point, or victory point and the munitions point. Oh, I am just so messed up this game. And now the Volksgrenadiers on the way towards the infantry, and need to get to that cover as soon as possible. And they're going to get behind the fence here, so they'll have superior cover than the British forces. And here come the Stern Pioneers to back up the situation as well. There are some Royal Engineers, but I do believe Stern Pioneers beat the Royal Engineers typically. It is a close fight, but the Sturmgewehr 44s just so good on those Stern Pioneers. Volksgrenadiers taking the wrath of all this damage here. And meanwhile, the Stern Pioneers doing work on those Royal Engineers, forcing all of these troops on out of here with that incendiary grenade and those Stern Pioneers. Now up top, Volksgrenadiers are taking that territory point that the British forces just took. Decided against taking that munitions point. And do have some Volksgrenadiers in the center as well, guarding the center victory point. Meanwhile, Stern Pioneers have entered the house here, now firing back at each other at that Vickers heavy machine gun, but will probably not last too long against that Vickers heavy machine gun, so decides to back out and get some cover behind the house. End that line of sight. Vickers victory point being taken by the Volksgrenadiers, and successfully takes that. All 3 victory points for the OKW right now, so winning pretty quickly here. Perfect score so far, 500 to 458. Meanwhile, infantry are moving over towards the center. They'll be trying to take this victory point back. However, there are some Volksgrenadiers inside this church. They're going to give those infantry a hard time while they do it. Should be able to take it, but will suffer losses while doing so. Vickers has exited the house here. May set up against this stone wall here against the Volksgrenadiers inside, but the Volksgrenadiers will be able to hold out for quite a while against an MG. MGs don't do too well against troops inside of a building. They do take a little while to pepper them up, although they are losing some of these Volksgrenadiers. They were already low on health and did not have a full squad, so now only down to 2 men in that house. And now going to have to back on out of there. Victory point has been captured by the British forces down in the bottom. The victory point at the bottom being taken by the British forces. Momentarily lost that. And Royal Engineers now moving towards the center as well. Up top, a battle going on. Volksgrenadiers versus the British infantry. And there are only 3 Volksgrenadiers here, so I'm going to have to run those away before they get the chance to take that fuel point. And victory point at the bottom has now been taken by the British forces, taking away that perfect score of the OKW. It looks like an infantry support gun is firing away at the center here, trying to blast away anything that's at that victory point, but nothing there at the moment. So simply just barraging pretty much nothing. And that Vickers heavy machine gun is close, but a little bit too far away for that infantry support gun to be hitting it in the center there. Infantry are chilling out here at the bottom of the map, not really taking this territory point. Now they decide to. And the bottom munitions point still neutralized, as well as the top munitions point, so neither player deciding to take either of the munitions point. I'm not sure if I agree with that play. And almost made it to that munitions point. So close. This guy actually should be taking that, technically. Star Pioneers have got inside the house here to fire on the infantry, but they do have those medium range, I would say, STGs. And I'm going to force the infantry away. They did successfully take that territory point, so no longer need to be there. And the Schwerer Wehrmacht Schlepper going to be setting up right on the bridge. Looks like he's going to be making the Schwerer Panzer headquarters right here on the bridge. Very, very interesting spot to put one. Although we'll cover the area here, but not the best coverage. But we'll still stop anything from coming down here and taking both of those territory points. Meanwhile, the Stern Pioneers forcing away the infantry. Just 2 men left in that squad. Successfully get away, and there is now a 3-inch mortar emplacement for the British forces, and Royal Engineers now moving towards the bottom of the map. And a battle going on at the top here. We have infantry versus the Volksgrenadiers. Infantry have superior cover right now in behind that tractor there, but the cover is now completely denied by that incendiary grenade, burning them up very quickly. Only 2 men left in that squad with a very low amount of health. And may actually lose another man on the way here, but it looks like they just barely got out of the range of those Volksgrenadiers before they lost another man. Vickers is still set up in the center there to hold that center victory point. Meanwhile, Volksgrenadiers moving up and throwing, by the looks of it, some surprise infiltration tactics grenades and miss. And here come the Volksgrenadiers. Only 2 men left in this squad, losing out pretty quickly. Has to run away there and reinforce those. 6-pounder now out on the field. Nothing to use it against just yet. And we have some Obersoldaten coming for the OKW. And he does have that special operations doctrine, so he can use those infrared STG 44s in this map, which do huge, huge damage using that commander. And infantry still chilling here. Looks like a guy just finally died there. And that Schwerer Panzer headquarters covering this entire area, covers the fuel point and the territory point, also covers any kind of route. Trying to go around there, you can actually go around entirely all the way down. It does take quite a while. 1 infantry left in this squad, and the Volksgrenadiers in chase. Can he actually take out this squad or not? And looks like he's just barely going to pass around the corner. If that corner wasn't there in that fence, he may have actually lost that squad. And now the Volksgrenadier is going to be going down to the bottom, taking back that victory point. And hopefully this munitions point at some point, as no player has taken that at all yet. It's very, very interesting. And Stern Pioneers now taking that top victory territory point, not a victory point. And now the Volksgrenadiers hiding behind some sandbags here, battling out with 3 infantry. And it looks like the infantry are slightly outranging them, which is very unusual as well. And either side, really, the Volksgrenadiers not firing back. Looks like they're just barely out of range the way they're standing, slightly angled towards these infantry. Has to move up just a little bit, but now there are 7 infantry for the British forces, so definitely going to lose out with these Volksgrenadiers, but maybe he can get off an incendiary grenade, and no, not going to happen. Now some infantry are inside the building and may throw an incendiary grenade, but they're just going to exit the building before that goes off, and I'm going to have to retreat those Volksgrenadiers out of here really soon, or he's going to suffer way too many losses here. And there he goes, running away now. Did hold that territory point for a little while at the very least. Now forces his opponent to retake that. Now the munitions point finally being taken. I believe this is the first time this has been taken this entire game. And now we have Obersoldaten out on the map. They do have those STG, infrared STG package. And Obersoldaten moving towards that 3-inch mortar emplacement. If they can get close enough, they can decrew this in a quick hurry. And we have that Vickers pointing towards the Obersoldaten now, but they are just out of sight around that house. And they get inside the building there, but maybe not the best decision, as now the Vickers can actually fire on them. If they were just standing on the other side of the building, they wouldn't actually take any damage, but they do decrew that Vickers heavy machine gun, and he says, Jesus, the damage. Indeed, those STGs do huge, huge damage. And Royal Engineers and the 3-inch mortar emplacement holding out, bracing the structure, so they're not taking too much damage there. All the units inside sort of bracing and holding as best they can. The 6-pounder firing at the Obersoldaten, but he looks like he's just hitting his own structure instead of the actual Obersoldaten, so that's very interesting. Stern Pioneers chasing away the infantry up top, going to be taking back that territory point for the OKW. And that 6-pounder looks like it's finally found its mark. And those Obersoldaten firing away, now going to chuck some grenades inside there, finally. And there it goes off, heavily damaging the crew. About to decrew this entirely, throw some smoke down. And that 6-pounder trying to move around on the ice there, sliding around. Not a very useful 6-pounder this game, as there is no armor really to use it against. And there goes that emplacement, finally is destroyed by the infantry support gun by the looks of it. And now 2 infantry moving in on the Obersoldaten, and Obersoldaten doing huge work on the infantry. Moved a little bit too close there. And Volksgrenadiers still hiding out here. Could actually exit these Volksgrenadiers from the church and take that victory point, while there's really nothing to contest it at the moment. The British forces all the way back in his base with a couple units here reinforcing and healing up. Vickers now moving out once again and going towards the Volksgrenadiers. Looks like he moved up some additional Volksgrenadiers inside the house to take place of the Obersoldaten, but he really needs to be taking back this victory point here, as there's nobody around to contest him. No British forces, that is. All the infantry all the way back here should be able to take that in time. Picks up Vickers' heavy machine gun that he decrewed earlier with those Obersoldaten. Now going to put that inside the building. And it looks like these infantry are directly in the line of sight and should be able to fire upon them. And now going to start suppressing these troops. Going to force them to run away, either that or at least crawl out of the range of it. Now a Centaur is out in the field, so he's going to have to deal with this. And I believe he does have a Raketenwerfer, but it's all the way back at base, so it doesn't do too much good all the way back there. Volksgrenadiers not going to have to run on home. Just 2 men left in the squad. Centaur just eats up troops. 1 man left in the squad. And now firing on the Vickers that was inside that building, but gets it out in time there. And now the Vickers for the British forces is moving up. I'd like to see the British forces actually put that inside the building to further force the OKW back. But he's going to be leaving it all the way back there. Doesn't do too much good back there. Volksgrenadiers taking fire from that Centaur now. And the infantry moving up on them as well. Going to have to retreat these out of here. We're going to lose forces just about every shot, every volley. Loses 1 troop out of that Centaur, and got a couple lucky volleys there. Didn't actually lose any troops. Moved that Raketenwerfer up, but is not far enough up to actually hit that Centaur. And even still, he's going to need more than 1 Raketenwerfer to take out this Centaur. Centaur takes a hit there, takes a lucky hit, and does quite a bit of damage. And takes another hit there, down to half health, and needs to actually micro this Centaur out of here. He's actually taking quite a bit of damage from this Raketenwerfer. Normally, 1 Raketenwerfer is simply not enough. And trying to back up now. Maybe 1 more hit could do it. And loses that Centaur. That was not microed very well. If he would have simply either went for that Raketenwerfer or just avoided it entirely, he would have survived that. Typically, you can just pretty much charge an anti-tank device, such as a Raketenwerfer or a pack, with a Centaur. and completely take it out. And grenade lands on those infantry, takes them all out there. Very, very nice grenade indeed. And that Vickers heavy machine gun, they're going to start firing at the Obersoldat as soon as it can move into the window that it needs to be in, and moves just out of the range of sight, but moves at Vickers once again. And now firing at the Obersoldaten. And there's the lag of the game. And going to throw a grenade now inside the house, the infiltration grenades. And almost took out that Vickers there with the grenades. But once it got outside the building there, the Obersoldaten finished it off with the rifles. And Royal Engineers now moving up to try and contest the Obersoldaten. But I don't think that's going to happen. Obersoldaten just so good. Now 2 Obersoldaten on the map. And a third one is being created as well. British forces now taking over that fuel point on the top. Meanwhile, Stern Pioneers taking that territory point right outside the British forces base. Or at least defending it, rather. And now 2 Obersoldaten can move up against the British forces here, and I don't think he's really got enough to deal with these Obersoldaten. Doesn't really have the proper
supply lines being cut.
Proper units to do so. There is a
artillery support is on its
sniper
way.
out in the field, but he's not microing this very well at all. Loses that sniper to Stern Pioneers, and Stern Pioneers are being suppressed by that bunker, so he retreats on out of there. Captain Tampon says, "Good game, well played." Leaving Wulpenstein the winner of the game, and I think he just got outplayed here this game. The Obersoldaten pretty much changed the game around as soon as he brought these out. That Centaur simply could have turned the game around for Tampon there, but he did not micro that well. When he's actually being fired at right about here, if he would have just simply charged this Rakettenwerfer or came around the side, came at this a bit smarter of a way than he did, going right directly to the front of it. If he would have simply had some troops in front of it, he would have spotted this Rakettenwerfer. Then he could have known that that's there and went around it, or at least popped out around the corner where he wouldn't actually have much of a time to fire. He would have done much better this game. This Rakettenwerfer is pretty much one of the heroes of the game. Centaur usually don't see that too often. One Rakettenwerfer taking out an entire Centaur in 4, or was that 5 shots? Not really sure entirely. And there also is a Panther out on the map as well for the OKW, so that pretty much sealed the deal for our British Forces player. But I hope you guys enjoyed this replay, and I will see you guys next time.